This channel is made possible by viewers like you. My viewers, subscribers, and patrons greatly help to keep this channel going. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for all of you. Please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any uploads. And if you'd like to go the extra mile, please check out my Patreon page. For just $1 a month, you'll get access to what I'm working on, previews of upcoming content, and even early videos, along with other tier options for those that are interested. Thank you, and now on to the video. When it comes to game surprises, I have to admit that when something good comes your way, you can't help but get sucked into a bit of the hype. And for me, I was completely caught off guard when I learned that Timesplitters was coming back. And it wasn't even just like Timesplitters was coming back, but rather all of them were coming back. The entire trilogy through the PS Plus backwards compatibility. Now sure, the re-releases might be horrible and be botched. That could always happen, but I can't help but be excited to be able to have easy access to some of my favorite games again. Plus this will be a great opportunity for new players to be able to jump in and check them out. And for me, it might be a good excuse to play the very first game for the first time. With 1 only being on the PS2 and 2 and 3, they were available on the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube. It meant that 1 was one of those overlooked kind of games, and was one that I missed out on. But either way, Timesplitters is coming back, and it's easily one of my favorite surprises for 2024.
First kill.
The Timesplitters trilogy is returning to the PSN storefront on August 20th. For Xbox players, Timesplitters 2 and 3 are playable through their program. They actually have been for a while now. I boot them up every now and again because they hold up really well, even though the aiming is a little bit wonky on 2 for the Xbox. This is something that I hope is not an issue with the PSN release. While I cannot vouch for 1 because I haven't played it yet, I can attest that Timesplitters 2 plays more like GoldenEye in Perfect Dark, which makes sense because it was made by the same set of talent. 3 is where controls get a bit more modern and will probably feel really comfortable for any new players. Both are great either way. I tend to talk about how games used to be better back in the day, especially compared to our current offerings. If I was to use a game or set of games that really knew how to bring it to the player, Timesplitters would be it. The Timesplitters games stuffed their titles with so much content, all stuff that was worth playing. You got a campaign, split screen, bots, multiplayer options, a map maker, and an arcade mode, along with a wealth of unlockables. If Timesplitters was released in today's climate, it would all be piecemeal to the player, and even worse, modes and characters would be paid DLCs and expansions. Where these games had a history of really bringing it. They respected the player, their money, and didn't take them for granted. If it isn't obvious yet, I have a bias towards these games, and that is only because I really love awesome games. If you've played these, then you know what I'm talking about. There is a wealth of stuff to talk about when it comes to these games. There is so much to praise, but something that deserves to be touched on was its sense of style and visual design, humor, and even soundtrack. The characters were animated so well, very expressive. It had a cartoony look that has aged very well, along with having characters that worked in both serious and humorous situations. The third game goes full-on time travel comedy, and it's an absolute blast. If this game was made today, you probably wouldn't get this kind of stuff here. A big part of that is because of how many modern writers just don't know how to write well. Sure, the campaign in Future Perfect is hilarious, but humor was found in many other aspects of the game too, like being able to use a brick as a weapon, or the cries of enemies whenever you light them on fire. The various characters you can select for multiplayer were just great. It was like the developers sat down and brainstormed various characters a player could be, and then were able to create a huge list of good ones. And instead of cutting some, the developers just said, we're just going to use all of these, let's keep them. I mean, you even get to be a gingerbread man. Each character comes with their own introduction as well. This was the type of game that was great to enjoy with friends and have a really fun night with. The customization and bots allowed for a large player base, even if you just wanted to play with one friend and have a full, complete team full of bots. Modern games could even learn a thing or two from these games. So if you haven't tried these titles, these re-releases are ones to keep an eye out for. Another thing I am a bit cautious about is if we're gonna get an actual official remastered collection set. Personally, I'd love to see these games get remastered, just for the fact they could finally would be on PC natively, and not through just emulation. Another thing I wonder is if these re-releases will have any options for online play. My guess is that there won't be an option for that, but at the off chance you can play either of the Timesplitters games online, now that would be really cool. But for that part, I'm not going to hold my breath. But even with just its offline options, you're going to have more than enough to keep you busy for a long time. If you pick up any of these titles, be ready to not want to play anything else for a while. I think 2024 might be the year where Sony is actually making great strides with their backwards compatibility options. They have been consistent yet slowly adding to it for the last few years, but it's also something where many of us gamers were like, thanks for what you've provided, it's been really good, but you might want to pick up the pace a little if you could. For example, I love seeing many of the Siphon Filter games returning so that anyone can actually play these things pretty easily today. Other gems have joined the catalog, and like I said, it's been growing. It was reported that Sony had partnered with another company to bring PS2 games back as well. This was then furthered when we saw the Clone Wars, Sly Cooper, and Tomb Raider Legend return to digital storefronts on the PSN for PS4 and 5. To clarify, these are not remasters with all the bells and whistles that you might want to see for an older game. There are some options here that are really nice, but they're more of re-releases. While as a player and a huge fan of many of these retro games, I do have that want to be able to access more of these titles, because quite honestly, they were just really good. Yeah, sure, you're probably going to find better options to play around with the settings with PC emulation, but for those that don't have access to a good PC, or just want to be able to play it on their home console, this is a good route. And now we are nearing the end of summer, and it seems like Sony is really starting to pick up the pace a bit. We've received a few PS2 games, but like I said earlier, this month we're going to be gaining access to the entire Timesplitters trilogy. This was such a huge and awesome surprise. My bias is on full display because I love these games. They are easily some of my favorite first-person shooters. Plus, they really bring us back to a better time in gaming. With these coming back, I am curious what will be around the corner. If I could make a personal request, I would want the Medal of Honor games to be added to the PlayStation catalog, along with the EA Bond games that were made at that time. Medal of Honor seems like it should be pretty easy to put on the platform, where the Bond games might be a lot harder because of licensing. But if there is a way, I'd kill to have access to them again. Are you excited for Timesplitters? Which entry did you start with? Let me know in the comments down below. If you're interested in supporting the channel, please check out my Patreon page. For just $1 a month, you can help to keep this channel going strong, and this allows me to be able to do more for my awesome audience. Please check out the links in the description and pinned comment for ways to support the channel. And most of all, thank you very much for watching.